All right, let's start putting this all together. So now we're going to go through the checklist. So before you submit it for a quote, again, as I've mentioned many times, there are certain things that are really going to set the tone for how much your website project is going to cost. Again, assuming you're doing it content first and assuming we're kind of going with a custom sort of build, not just using a template fixed price. So number one is going to be the content, like we've discussed. Making sure you have the content written to at least a 90%. Because again, following content first design, whether you add some or remove some, it's going to set the tone for how much labor is involved. So making sure that before you get a quote on your project, you have your content done. Number two, you have your functionality requirement outlined. With websites, depending the complexity of what you need it to do, is really going to change the price. So if it's a simple site that's just a blog, for example, that doesn't have to like do anything, that's going to be very different than if you're building a WooCommerce website or you're doing tons of API integrations. So making sure the functionality requirement is clearly documented. Number three, the website style. Sometimes we have clients who want something custom and fancy and movement and custom graphics, and that's going to be a very different price than someone who just wants something basic and simplistic and sort of more on a structure, kind of a grid sort of look. So making sure that you have your content, your functionality requirement, and your mood board style guide, really clear direction in terms of design, because those are the three things that are going to help that designer just really expedite their process and help this become so much more cost efficient. Once you have all these pieces together, making sure that it's all in one spot. So whether or not you're using the portal, again, I'd recommend using the portal. That's what I created it for. The portal allows you to put all the information in and then download it. And then it's going to give you a printout, a PDF that you can then take to your web team and get that quote. But before you do that, if you're part of a team or you have stakeholders or directors or your marketing team, your sales team, and they have to sign off on the website plan, do it now. There's one thing that's just gonna hijack the quote is if you send off one thing, you get a quote, but then once your boss or your partner or whoever sees the plan and they're like, wait a second, we didn't include this, or we're not going to do that in this version of the website, and then they're going to change the scope, that's going to affect the price. So before you send this document off for a quote, get your team to sign off on it. Anyone who's a stakeholder, anyone who's got to give kind of that green light on it, make sure they've seen it, they agree, nothing is missing. And so that when the project starts, the project can start. We're not going through multiple revisions and changes and then the estimates changing and back and forth and questions. This is the time. This is the time to do it now. So number one, making sure you get the checklist, you got the main things done, making sure it's all organized, it's in the portal. And then number three, making sure that your team has signed off on it. That will then take you to the next step of where you're ready to start interviewing. I'll see you in the next video.